Think about how the think tanks have been bought, when you think about how the newspapers, mainstream, have been bought, and when you think about how with public funding for our universities, particularly public universities, that our campuses are just kind of starting to get bought. And so it's really, when we just invest public resources in our public higher education institutions, I think what we can expect is more of this. And it's really, I think, one of the great things that I hope we can do before certainly Jerry Brown leaves office is that we can renew our investment of public financing of our higher education institutions. Very important because it speaks to really, there are universities, they're the people's universities, you know, they don't get to be bought. But I also think, and the reason I'm here is also obviously to support the new ADA chapter, because as we look at how we're going to build this progressive movement, it is very, very important for the many of you, Jan, Jerry, others who have been in this movement for so long, to begin to build that bridge to our next generation of leaders. But it's not only just building a bridge, it's actually really encouraging and organizing our young people to become leaders in their own right. And many of them are, but they need our support. And this organization is very, very key. And I want to just say this because this is really something that I think sometimes the progressive movement, when I see it in other parts of the state, misses. And that is, as we're organizing, we're all our own agents of change. We're not organizing to do something to people. We're all our own agents of change. And that includes our young people on campuses, and includes all of us in the different communities that we represent. And this is important because if we're just organizing for the sake of organizing and growing our numbers and having a movement, we haven't really pushed ourselves that far forward. And so the voices, the collective voices of the progressive movement relies on having all of these people around the table in their respective communities, and particularly on campus, as we just saw. I want to just say, in terms of the environment, this is my first and foremost focus in the Controller's Office. I had my first State Lands Commission meeting with our Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom chairing it yesterday, and this is an area where obviously the crisis of global climate change, California can really be a leader here, and we need to, first of all, just be sure that everybody understands the issue. It is so intricately involved in so many of our other public policy challenges right now, including food security, including our water situation, our drought crisis. It's all interrelated, including issues of poverty and inequality. And so as we look at how we begin to make those connections, how all these issues are interrelated, and how different communities are affected by one aspect or many aspects of the global climate change crisis, we can build this movement. Because people feel it. People feel it in their everyday lives. And so that's, I think, the charge of this progressive movement is, how do we try to help make those connections? How do we mentor our next generation of leaders to where they're already a voice of their own, and that we give them the support to do so? And then more importantly, how do you hold us accountable in elected office to be able to finally focus on the policies that need to be tended to? And so I'm very, very excited to be at the Controller's Office. As Jan said, I've had a very, unfortunately, internal focus in my first month of office. As much as I'd like to get out there and start my own initiatives or begin to join many of the other initiatives, but my focus is internal because, as I promised the voters, to be able to be the office that lines the store for the state of California, I have to have that capacity to be sure that we do it properly, and certainly in the most efficient way possible. And I can tell you the first thing that I've started is a paper reduction initiative. There's way too much paper going on in the Controller's Office, so just looking internally and seeing how we can streamline a lot of our financial operations to where we're not just burning and killing trees at the same time. Secondly, looking at how we are going to bring some rationality about with respect to retirement security for our public sector workforce and our teachers, because this is an area where I think there will be a public pension reform initiative that will begin to qualify. That really is going to not help us. It will be by the corporate private sector types who believe that the public sector workforce and the retirees are living high on the hog. And it couldn't be further from the truth. There's a way that we can hopefully get people to become public servants, to serve in different disciplines of our government at all levels, and at the same time There are taxpayers who are being so-called educated right now about the fact that we are breaking the bank with our public pension systems. Oh, wow. And what I say to them is, look, this is not going to be solved overnight. We have to have a long-term view about how we deal with our unfunded liability. We just had our state teachers retirement system, with the leadership of our legislators, fund a new funding formula that has every single party stepping up to the plate and paying more. And ultimately, I think that's what we will need to happen if we don't shore up our economy to be able to produce the returns that we want to see. So as much as I would love to take all of our money out of fossil fuel today, we don't have enough with respect to renewable energy investments to be able to fill that hole. And when we decided to divest from tobacco, we left a gaping hole in the billions. And so we have to be responsible how we do this, but also not just look at one end of the equation, but to, at the same time, do what we can to really get our economic sectors up that we want to see in terms of green, clean tech, so that we can put our investments where they rightfully should be. So this is going to be a long-term initiative that I know I have a lot of support to really try to do. But don't let the headlines scare you, and certainly push back if taxpayers are saying that the public sector workforce is living rich off of public pensions. There's no retired teacher that's living richly right now. There's no retired public servant who's living richly right now. And the fact of the matter is, when we are able to put out financial information, it's skewed information, because it doesn't talk about the fact that we've had years and years and years of public budget cuts. And the reason salaries are so high for certain public servants is because they're doing the work of 5 people. And so that's what we're looking at. So numbers don't tell the whole story, and that's a big part of my job, is just to talk about what the numbers really mean. I want to just conclude by saying this. Many of you were so involved with my campaign on the ground, and I'm just going to say, for every single campaign, even for the presidential election coming up in 2016, we've got to stay on the ground. This is how we get the message out. This is how we touch people. We cannot take that for granted, and frankly, I think part of the reason that we're kind of in this fight, and I hope we don't fall into this trap, is because of the money that the other side is putting into this. Yeah. And money, yeah, it's an issue, and we're going to continue to fight to get money out of politics in the way that we're seeing it, corrupt politics. But at the same time, we can't lose the ground game, because I still believe the power of organized people can overcome the power of organized money any day, any day. And I hope that when you all invested in my campaign and the way that we ran our campaign on the ground can continue to be a model of how we get people elected. And I know candidates here are working, just there tirelessly to get out the vote. And ongoing the community college district election, Ben Allen with his election. Every one of us who have run for office, who are in this room, I know, did not give up on the ground game, and we have to stay focused on that. And that's how we're going to continue to build our movement, frankly, because we're going to put out great candidates we can support. We're going to really talk our own narrative about what it means to be progressive, not what's being, frankly, just put on the airwaves for people to really attach themselves to. But that if you have the time, and I will just leave you with this, one of the things that I believe really made this campaign so successful was taking the time to learn each other's narratives. Because we're a diverse state, there's no reason why the progressive movement cannot build itself, because the diversity is out there. There are communities looking to be involved, hungry to be involved, but we don't understand them enough to engage them. And so we've got to do our homework. It's not about just putting a Spanish flyer out in the mail to them, when most times that's going to offend them. You've got to really understand their narrative, understand how to translate those concepts in their language, and more importantly, once you engage them, keep them engaged. So not just for a vote, but to keep them engaged, because they're going to become a part of this larger movement. So I'm just happy to join all of you. I'm happy to join all of you to say Happy Lunar New Year, and we just are celebrating the year.
That's right.
I hope all of you will take one of these. This is the Chinese symbol for Yi. And inside is a date walnut cake, which is actually covered with a rice paper cover, so you can eat the rice paper. But the reason why dates and walnuts are important is that they really are symbols of not only family and community, but also of prosperity. And so when I think about the goal of the progressive movement, it's about rebuilding our community and really being able to honor the prosperity of the values that we hold dear as progressives. And so please take one, help us celebrate the new year. Congratulations to ADA. I will be helpful with respect to the new chapter. I'm a Cal Berkeley grad, and I can tell you that campus is getting way conservative for my taste.
Oh, yeah.
So we are going to be doing some work there. But again, just another opportunity to personally say thank you, thank you, thank you, and I am very privileged to
We're going to take this opportunity to have the stars of the show, our students, come up. And